Welcome, everyone. We want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to be with us. Come on, let's get to the root of it.
In these times that we live, we take strides to move forward. We strive to be more, stay strong and be focused. Start a while, we make choices, live or die. Take over starts at the root, and the truth may be hard to swallow. Step one, self-love above anything else. Unlock peace and happiness.
Thank you for tuning in to At the Root of It. My name is Shannon, and we are wrapping up the month of January and talking about childhood trauma. This was one of the hardest months, actually, of speaking about these things, because it brings up a lot of questions in your mind to see, am I that parent, or was I a product of that? Good evening, Tinge. Good evening, sis. It's just, after looking back at the past shows, hey Chuck, after looking back at the past shows with molestation and narcissistic parents and emotionally unavailable parents, you get to the nitty-gritty of why we're kind of the way that we are as adults, right? But then we get to the hardest part, which is physical, emotional, and substance abuse, I'll say, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a drug, even though alcohol is a drug as well. But when you're dealing with those things, there's some characteristics that form in us that we don't even realize has formed in us due to what we experienced as a child. Whether you saw someone that was physically beaten every day, or if you were the child that was physically beaten every day, what are the traumas that come with that? What are the things that you could possibly get into that may hinder you from being all that you can be, right? So before we get into it, please share the link I'm about to share myself. So please share, guys. I'm sharing. Please share. Enter in, darlings. I'm sharing, you guys. I know that I'm taking a while, but this is really like important. This is not something that we can just brush over. And one of the things that we really want to talk about is really get into the root of us. Like, there's so many things that I just looked up, and this is also one of the topics that's very personal to myself, because as I was growing up, my life wasn't perfect either. And I went through a series of things in my teenage years that, in a sense, helped me in the long run as far as how I am now with how I am now with like substance abuse, like alcoholism. I don't drink. I don't, because of what I experienced when I was growing up. And the trauma that came with it was low self-esteem. And I have some information that's coming that'll let you know that these are all tied together, you know. Good evening. Good evening. Thank y'all for coming in. Please share. Please share. Please share. We're going to talk about arrested development and how we can get stuck in our trauma at the age that the trauma happened. There's so much that can happen to a child. And if a child has seen physical abuse, if they become abusive or accept abuse, because it does, especially if your parents or your mother was abused while she was pregnant with you. If she was, then that in turn can affect the children as well, or us. It could have affected us as well. So just all the different things like that we're going to discuss tonight. And it's kind of, like I said, it really all boils, it comes full circle, because we talked about last season, we talked about attachment styles. And one of the things that Jasmine brought up about attachment styles was that it was something that came from our childhood. So because it came from our childhood, you know, we know if we are anxious, preoccupied, dealing with abandonment issues, dismissive, avoidant, dealing with rejection issues, or fearful, avoidant, dealing with fear, period, right? But it all stems back to how we were raised and what we were surrounded around. And, you know, this is not a bash the parents type of show, but what it is an awareness of the effects that it can cause to children. And we're not even really thinking, you know, we don't even think that it can affect a child in its adult age. Because I know for sure that when I was raising my daughter, when she was like 1 and 2, it was certain things that I didn't want her to see, but it was certain things that she was around because she was only 2. But unbeknownst to us, our children remember these things. And then we have to sit here and kind of fix what we broke, you know, and kind of get the person that we made by our own actions to straighten up and do right. But so I have some questions, and it was very hard for me to even find the questions because I was praying and I was like, so how am I going to do this? Hey, Jen, how are you? Thank you for coming in. And I'm going to ask you guys some questions, because one of the things, like I was saying about attachment styles, when you have all of these different attachment styles, it comes from the neglect, okay? And that is the main thing that we really need to focus on, is that all of these things are under the umbrella of neglect, okay? And so with the neglect, you know how in the Bible it Chronicles has all of the different lineages, right, of the people in the Bible, and it says this one begat this one, begat this one, begat this one, right? Well, neglect begot which begot abandonment, which begot rejection. So it's a stair step up, or I'm going down but going up, you know what I mean? They're all connected. And once we can attack these things, and once we can get to the root of the neglect of what our parents did to us and the anger, and we begin to forgive, because see, forgiveness is the key. A lot of times we think that we forgive our parents due to the fact that we can speak to them and we can interact with them, but that doesn't mean subconsciously we don't know in the back of our heads what they did to us when we were younger. But we have to forgive our parents. We have to forgive ourselves for our mistakes, in which we didn't know was attached to the neglect and the abandonment and the rejection that we felt. And once we get to the root of that, we can really, really begin to become those secure people. We won't have to worry about being anxious, preoccupied, and attaching ourselves to people and doing all the different things that anxious, preoccupied people do because of the fear of abandonment. When you have a fear of abandonment, you tend to accept anything, which even is physical abuse. So say we came from a household where our parents fought every night. Does that create like, say you're a young man and you see that your father beat up on your mother all the time? Does What is the percentage of boys that turn into men who tend to beat on their wives and their girlfriends due to the fact of what they saw in the home in which they grew up in, right? And then for the young ladies, right? They see their mother getting beat down by their father, their boyfriend, or whomever, right? And instead of taking the route of that will never be me, you know what I mean? Because that was my route. But some people take it a different way and think that, well, my mom was happy even though she got beat. So some women like to get beat, right? And say, don't feel that they're loved unless they're getting beat on. That is a psychological issue that happened due to the formative years of your growth. And this is what I talked about in reference to being shaped in iniquity. Okay, the iniquity is what we tend to go through in our households. Now, please believe the things that I went through in my childhood. I'm not holding anything against my parents because my parents did what they could do, and they beat all odds. Do you understand what I mean? They could have been dead, and they're still living. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. You know what I mean? 70 and 71 years old. But decisions were made and things were done. And if you go back to the very first show of At the Root of It, on how I got to the root of myself and how I realized that because of the different choices that our parents had made at that time in the 80s, that we had to actually fend for ourselves. So when it came down to authority figures and people telling me what to do, that was kind of like a no-no for me, because guess what? I was running the show early age, 6, 7 years old. I didn't have nobody to tell me that I was wrong or right. You understand what I mean? So it formulates your mind. It formulates how you go about your life and your thought patterns. Okay. So I did some research on arrested development because I know that there are some people, like as I was looking up arrested development, it was so many people that were saying, why am I 26 years old, but I feel like I'm 13? And it's because people get stuck at the age of their trauma, okay? And they get stagnant, staying at the point of their in a stunted growth, okay? And then they wonder why. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what was wrong with me. You know what I mean? Because remember, y'all, I'm a year and 7 months now. I can't say a year and a half because we out of December. You know what I mean? But I'm almost 2 years old as an adult. But I didn't grow up in a traditional way, even though I had a traditional family. Do you understand that? Like, I had my mother, my father, I had my maternal and paternal grandparents, I had cousins and aunts and uncles, I had all of that fullness, okay? But when you dig deep down into it, that's where it gets a little, questionable. And it's like, wow, you experienced that. Oh, no wonder you're like this. Oh, you experienced that. It helps you understand why you are the person that you are, right? And my goal tonight is for you to actually be able to identify if these things are happening or did happen to you that may have stunted your growth or may have kept you stagnant in an area of your life that you seem like you cannot get out of, okay? Because one thing that I did read was that this kind of trauma is healable, okay? We can heal from this. We do not have to be what we were conditioned to. We can reprogram our mind. I remember my father had a stroke, right? When he had his stroke, he told me that in order for him to get back on his feet, he had to get up and go. But he would forget where he was driving because my father owns a cab company, in New York. And so he had to retrain his brain. Okay, and it takes a certain type of person and a willpower and a willingness to live, okay, to want to change your brain, how to reprogram your brain. But guess what? It is doable. Now, before we get any deeper into these conversations and into this conversation, I want to put the disclaimer out that I'm not a psychologist. I'm just talking or speaking from a place of understanding as well as personal knowledge on this particular subject, as well as the research. We also want to let you know that at the root of it is really, really, we really, um, Jesus, we like therapy. Okay, we recommend therapy. If the information that you gather from this podcast is not enough and you still feel like you need additional help, please seek therapy, because that's one of the things that happens in the Black community. And I know I'm not speaking to just the Black community, but we need to seek therapy. And there's so many people that are now not ashamed to say that they're in therapy. And guess what? They're a better person because of it. Because now they're able to identify their triggers. Okay, because we have triggers that are stuck in our subconscious that we don't even know, because it came from our childhood. Okay, now again, this is not for us to bash any parents or anything like that, but this is for us to bring understanding to why we are the way that we are and why we felt the way that we felt. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is probably physical abuse. Okay, now when you grow up, like I said, when you grow up with physical abuse, a couple of things can happen to you. Okay, you can make up in your mind, right? This is one, you can make up in your mind that that will never be you. And that you will never stand for the things that your mother or your father or anybody who was being abused would stand for. That you would change how they did it, and you will never accept that. But you got to be careful with that, because that can make you cold, okay? Or you can be the person that that accepts it and think that that's love. Or three, you can be the one that starts to physically abuse people due to the fact that you were physically abused as well as seeing it, okay? So you have this mental picture of people who are supposed to protect you that is harming you, okay? We got to understand the deepness and the intensity of our minds, okay? Our minds are very, very strong. And if we don't try to condition our mind and arrest the thoughts that try to take over us, then we can stay stuck in a place, and we don't want to stay stuck. Okay, so one of the questions says, does beating your child cause trauma? And this is from APA.org. It says physical discipline is slowly declining as some studies reveal lasting harms for children. Many studies have shown that physical punishment, including spanking, hitting, and other means of causing pain, can lead to increased aggression, antisocial behavior, physical injury, and mental health problems for children. Okay, so say you are a parent that hits before you speak and explain, and you wonder why your child is a recluse and don't want to be around people, or that they are overly aggressive and mean and beat up people in the school, and you have to go down to the school, and there you go beating them again because he done messed up in school, but you're not understanding that it's the beatings that is happening, okay? And this is why it's happening, that increased aggression, okay, or that antisocial behavior where they don't want to be around anybody. Right now, what I realize is that the kids that are in their 20s and going into their 30s, a lot of those kids have they have anxiety, social anxiety, okay? They don't know how to act or respond outside of the people that they know. And that is an issue. That is something that we drop the ball at, because our kids don't know how to socially be active and in this world. And some things may be mental, some things just may be that your child is shy. But there's some things that is because we didn't prepare them. Maybe it was the video games. You know what I mean? We didn't stimulate their mind the way our minds were stimulated. You know, we have to think about all of those things and take accountability, because at the end of the day, we're wondering why our kids are having such a bad time with people. And it's like, because we didn't give them the real life tools that they really needed to actually function as a functioning adult in the world. And sometimes we really think that we did, but then come to find out we didn't. Why? Because there's something that we took out from how we was raised to how we wanted to raise our children, and we missed a very vital key. I really believe that. I really believe that we really missed something in trying to be different from our parents. We missed and I don't even know what that is. Maybe it's the fact that we went outside and we had to deal with people early on, and we knew people on our street, and you know, and our kids didn't really play outside, or if they did, they only play with each other. They didn't play with outside people. You know, you don't know what these reasons are, right? But at the end of the day, we know it's also because of what they see in the household. Okay? We have to understand that although they're kids, they have eyes that see, that they take mental pictures with their eyes. These are cameras. And we take pictures of things, mental pictures. Okay? So we just really have to be mindful. Please share this. Please share this person. You know, this is like a scam thing, and I always put it up here, and then they erase it by the time I get there. It's so crazy. But anywho, let's see. So USA Today says researchers estimate that between 4.5 million and 15 million children are exposed to physical violence in the home. Verbal and emotional abuse in the home is more difficult to track. Of course it is. Of course it's difficult to track because there's no scars. There's no bruises. So you cannot see the effect that your words have on your children. You call them stupid, you call them dummy, you call them hoes, you call them bees, you call them all these things and expect them to be an upstanding adult. How, Sway? How is that even possible? When you have given them the antidote, the blueprint on being a lowlife, because that is what you've named them to be. That is what you've spoken over them for them to know and to understand. That's just like racism. Racism is a learned behavior. It's not something that you're born with. Well, neither is the fact that you speak to people the way that you do, and they have a memory of how and what you're saying. Okay? These are cameras. They see everything. And they hear everything. And there's nothing that we can do about it once it's done, but to either explain it and not do it again, or keep the cycle going and then wonder why your kids is off the chain. And by the time your kids is off the chain, you're old and understand life a little bit more and say, I don't know what's wrong with these kids. Well, boo, is what's wrong with these kids. What you gave them when you were younger, before you got big. You understand what I mean? Like, that's one of the things that really cracks me up, is that a lot of times the older people, the older generation, sit back and say, I don't know why these kids are acting like this. And it is a direct connection to how we were raised. We don't want to take accountability for that. Okay, well, if you want to come on live, you can definitely do it. There's a link in the description box right there if you would like to come on, if you can't type. But I would love to hear it because I want this dialogue, okay? I want the dialogue because people need to understand that they're not only ones that are stuck or that don't know why. Okay, like how I probably was stuck on the screen. You understand what I mean? People don't know why they are the way that they are. They just say, I am how I am. No, baby, you're not. You were shaped like that. But that doesn't mean that you can't be reshaped. You understand what I mean? God is the potter. We are the clay. And if you know anything about pottery, which I don't really, but I do know enough to say that if what you're making does not come out the way that you want it to come out, guess what? You smush that clay back down and you start again. And this is what we can do. We can smush it down, not suppress. Understand? So Jen, okay. She said, that's so sad that people call their children those names. Yes, baby, they do. They do, and a lot worse, and think that is funny. And it really isn't, because it begins a thought process in your child's head. If you say, oh, you're just an F up, right? They're going to walk around and you continue to say that thing. Because guess what? Remember, the Bible says faith comes by hearing. It doesn't mean that you ain't believing the wrong thing. It still comes by hearing. And if they keep saying it and you don't know how to rebuke it and fight it, then you become the very thing that they called you. Or you could become that real strong person and say, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to show you better than I can tell you that I am not that. That greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. That I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. That no matter what comes my way, I'm going to keep walking. I'm going to keep walking. I'm going to keep walking. I know that my life is not for nothing. I know that this is not the place where God wants me to be. I know for a fact that I don't have to stay here, that all I have to do is renew my mind daily, and I can begin to change the outlook of my life because I view it from a different vantage point. Smush it down and reshape. If my father can reprogram his mind after a stroke, we can reprogram our mind after trauma. We can. And the first step is believing that you can and that you're powerful enough to do it. We don't have to rest in it. We don't have to be what society thinks we are because of what we came from. And even some people don't even care, but don't even realize that their toxic ways stems from this. Yes, D, it's usually a cycle. And we don't understand it, but we need to, so that our children's children will not have to go through what we go through or what we went through. Jen says, I hear it where I live every day. This lady was yelling at her 2-year-old, calling him a mother effer and every name in the book. It broke my heart. And that it really bothers me too. I mean, the worst thing that I could possibly say to my daughter when she was little was she was a jive turkey. And we had a game, and I would say, Jasmine is a jive turkey. And she'd say, Mommy is a jive turkey. That's about it. Because I always tried to uplift my child. And it was because I was never uplifted. It was because I was emotionally abused, but nobody knew it. I wasn't necessarily physically abused, but I was definitely emotionally abused. But at the end of the day, it made me stronger. And one of the things that I did to get over it so that I did not walk around with this thing on my back was I talked about it. And I remember saying it in an earlier show that I had a friend that asked me, Shannon, why are you talking about it? And I would say, because I got to get it off of me. I can't carry it. It's too heavy to bear. So I'm casting it away. I'm casting my cares. I'm not holding it. I'm not carrying it. It's not my burden to bear. I didn't ask to be born, right? So I have to deal with it how I'm going to deal with it. And I'm going to deal with it by releasing it and running away. I was the runaway. I would run away. But the only difference with me was the fact that I was able to run to family. I was able to run to my older sister and my older brother because I was the youngest. So my brother, my sister didn't go through what I went through throughout our whole lives. It was different. Same parents, same rearing, different scenarios, different outcomes. So for parents out there, stop comparing your kids because with one, you was probably one way, and with the other, you was probably another way. And that's why they are at odds because one got one part of you and another one got another part of you. Okay? We can't be, there's always a difference, no matter if they were raised in the same household. So King says, so if a child is terrible and light spankings, talking, or punishment doesn't work, light spankings, talkings, or punishment doesn't rectify that child's behavior, what do you suggest that parents do? Get them evaluated. Because it may be a chemical imbalance. It may be something neurological. But we don't think like that because, number one, we don't want to admit or even think that we may have something mentally not right. Okay? Or that something, and it may not even be like a mental disability, but it could be ADHD. Remember back in the days, everybody used to just be put in special ed because they was bad. They didn't know that it was called ADHD. You know what I mean? But you get them checked out. You take them to a behavioral doctor. That's a psychologist. To see behaviorally, get them tested. Because if the spankings and the talking and the punishment is not working, then you need Jesus and you need a psychologist. But I really believe that you need someone that will be able to identify a little bit deeper what the issue is. And in that case, I believe that both of you guys, parents and child at that time, should go together because then you'll learn what not to do and what you need to stop doing that is hindering your child or making your child overly aggressive. Because half the time, and then you need to be more observant as well, because some kids are angry and those light spankings and talkings and punishments ain't working because they're trying to tell you something, but they're not telling you. They're telling you through behavior. So we need to really understand that there's more to parenting than just buying them clothes and feeding them. We have to think about them psychologically, okay? Because their psychological health is what is going to make them a secure adult. And we don't want to repeat cycles. We never want to repeat cycles. Why? It didn't do our parents any good. It didn't do us any good. Why would I want my daughter to do the same thing expecting a different result? That's insanity. Let's break these generational curses. And that is by getting the broom and sweeping that stuff from underneath the carpet and actually seeing what's in there. And that's rejection, that's neglect, that's abandonment, that's physical abuse, that's emotional abuse, that's substance abuse. I really thought about this, and I didn't know how I was really going or which direction I was going to go with this show because it was so personal to me. Okay. But as I said before, that these things need to come up in me too. I need to be healed too. And I was that terrible child. Okay, spankings didn't help. Neither did talking. And oh boy, did I get punished. But that didn't help either. And I didn't get any psychological help. I just grew up, or so I thought. Okay, but I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't good. I wasn't terrible. Like, I wasn't setting things on fire and throwing cats in the alley, in the woods, because that shows that you're like a sociopath or something like that when you do stuff like that, right? But I didn't care about consequences. So I took that. I would do stuff knowing I was going to get a beating. Knowing that I was going to get a beating. Knowing that my father was going to talk to me about something. And knowing that 9 times out of 10, I was going to be on punishment for another year. I didn't care. I didn't care. And so what is that? That's rebellion. But it was also because of what I went through. I ruled my world for 2 years in my formative years while my parents transitioned us. So when authority came, it was like, what? Mm-mm. Okay, let's go back. So D said, that's true. I'm sorry, I should have put that up when you put that, so I know what you're saying that's true about. Jen says, also, what are they being exposed to? Who are they around? Exactly. They could really be crying out to you and you don't know. So they act out. And you just say, oh, you bad. Oh, no, I don't want to hear it. Sit down. Da, 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 da. And we're not paying attention because we are so wrapped up in our life, in our job, in what we want, what we desire, or what man is in our life, what man is not in our life. And we forget about the children. And I know that, that's just crazy. T says, back in the day, our parents didn't know that the kid was anything else except that. Right. So that was when people said my name, my mother was one of those mothers that was like, yeah, that's Shannon. She sure is bad. She didn't stick up for me. I have no protection. She never stuck up for me, even when I wasn't wrong. I remember I got in trouble so much in 8th grade, right, that I almost got expelled from school from fighting, and it was gang stuff. And we wasn't even a gang. We was just like a little posse or whatever. But that's trying to feel accepted and wanted and loved. Because my sister was off at college and I was used to being around my sister and not my parents. So I had to find something else to get into. I was bad. I wasn't terrible, but I sure didn't listen. I was rebellious. Yes, D, we need to stop the process. Amen. You sure did. It was a cry for help. Yes, D, I really believe that it was. It's always a cry for help, but we really don't recognize those signs because we didn't even know that there were signs to recognize. So that's why I said we're not beating up parents. Not tonight. We're not beating up parents because I'm a parent too. And I'm just learning this stuff. My daughter's 23. So it's not beating up parents. It's let's get aware. Let's become more aware so that we understand. And in all our getting, we'll get understanding. And then maybe relationships can be healed. Because we hold our parents at a level that they should have known better. But we don't know that. We didn't know better. What did you do around your children that you would not do today because you know better? We have to learn how to forgive. We have to learn how to let grace abound. And we have to learn how to take these lessons. But we also need to say sorry to our children. My daughter's tired of me saying sorry, but I'm going to say sorry until I'm blue in the face. Anything that is revealed to me that I know that I did, I'm saying sorry. I'm not too proud. I'm not too proud. Pride will not stand before healing. It will not. Because what I went through and what my daughter went through, my grandson and his kids and his kids and their kids, will not. The buck stops here. What is it, D? This far, no further. We cannot. We will not. I just heard, and I can't stop now. You can hate me now. I don't care. This stuff needs to be spoken about. And I don't know why that came. I don't even know why that came to my head. But I mean it. So it says social workers, healthcare providers, and academics have long tracked the effects of trauma suffered by children growing up in urban neighborhoods with frequent gunfire and other violence. But outside of the medical journals, there has been little reported on the effect of the more common domestic violence on the millions of children who grow up with it. So we have to understand that even the people that we may get into relationships with, right? We're not really dealing with anybody that has really fully healed, because if we don't know what to identify, we can't heal it, right? That's like a doctor studying medicine. They have to research it, you know? They have to research and they have to find out what the issue is. We need to research and we need to dig deep, and that's what At the Root of It is here for, okay? So Dee says, I think if an adult child discusses how they felt growing up now, it might help free them from the bondage of the past. You think, girl? Yes. What? I know. You want to know why? Because I'm free and I love my parents. You know what I mean? I love them. I love them. I don't blame them for anything that they have done because they didn't know no better, just like I didn't. And the same grace that I want my daughter to give me for the lack of knowledge that I had is the same grace I'm going to give my parents. They smart as a whip now, though. Bet that there. Bet that there. All right. So Jen says, my mom tried to commit suicide when I was 14, and they couldn't understand why I started acting out, why I was depressed, why my grades started slipping, why I lost interest in things I was involved in. Their solution was to send me to a psychiatrist and put me on Adderall. And so was beginning the cycle of addiction in my life. Instead of talking to me, I was screaming for their attention and for them to talk to me. I didn't know why my mom wanted to die and leave me. I was a child. I thought I get it. Right. See, that's a prime example, Jen, of exactly what happens when you're traumatized as a child. You act out. You start to do things differently. And guess what? Parents who have teenage kids and tweens and young kids, pay attention to their demeanors. Because a lot of times these kids are happy and then all of a sudden they're not happy anymore. Why? And say you're a working mother, say you work for your kids and you have to trust other people to watch your kids. And you're slowly but surely seeing your kids change. That's time to ask the questions. That's the time to be even more so attentive to your children. Because there's people out there that prey on kids, Prey, to break them down. The enemy, the adversary, he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. I knew that there had to be a great calling on my life because he tried to take me out at a very early age. And a lot of the people in my family. It's because our bloodline. Okay? And If you don't know who you are, then you won't really understand the battles that you go through. But you have to dig a little deeper. So what about substance abuse? Okay. Substance abuse. People growing up with their parents who are on drugs or alcohol and what their life is like. Do you continue to cycle? Some people do. Some people follow right along in the footsteps of their people. Hey, Tifa. Some people follow in the footsteps of what they've seen. And some people make the conscientious decision to not do the same things and to break the cycle right then and there. Some people won't even look at a drug. Some people would try anything. It's all about your temperament. But see, V growing up in the 70s, right? In the 70s and the 80s, right? I was born in 77. And seeing the crack epidemic in the 80s, I can't fathom, and I don't understand addiction to that magnitude, but I can't fathom people who actually seen it in the 80s and go into the 90s and do it unless they got set up. Like DMX, right? His foster parent or somebody very close to him, his cousin, his uncle, laced his weed. These are the things that happen. But if we don't get with our children and explain these things about drugs, they could possibly go down the same route that you've gone down, or they can want to do something totally different and outside of the box because they don't want to live like that anymore. Substance abuse is hard, and it's at its highest peak because right now, and even in our music, like I know back in the 60s, they had music like, I'm your mother, I'm your daddy, I'm that in the alley, I'm the pusher man. That's a total drug song, right? They had those types of songs, but it wasn't flooding the airwaves. Tell me another one. Oh, tastes like candy. He wasn't talking about candy. He was talking about nose candy. You know, Mary Jane. I don't have an issue with that though. But Mary Jane. But all of these other things is subliminal. Right? It's in the music. But they took what? Molly Percocet. These is what our kids are listening to today. And then we have the parents talking about dancing like this, Molly Percocet, and then wondering why people are on opioids and worried about the phenamine, or what is it called? Fentanyl. Are you serious? You singing the songs, which is still putting it into your ear gates, and faith comes by hearing, and you keep putting it in your ear gates, and then you wind up saying, oh shoot, well let me try that Molly Percocet. No, you're not gonna try the Molly Percocet. That's the dumbest song I ever heard in my life. And it's a setup, and everybody fell for it. I'm mad I know the song. You know what I mean? Right. Fentanyl. I said it wrong, Jen. But that's why they stuck on this stuff. Because it's in the music and they're glorifying this stuff. When I was living down in Fort Lauderdale, I remember when Flocka first came out. And I would watch the people, and there was videos and videos and videos all over the internet showing what the Flocka was doing. And what it looked like to me was that the Flocka was bringing out the inner demons, and the demon was actually given permission to walk. That's what it looked like. If you had a lust demon, he was taking off your clothes and gyrating on the floor, having sex with gas pumps. That Flocka had people going crazy. Crazy. But I believed it was the inner demon that was already in that came up out when you took that drug. So I remember when I remember when I found out about it, my daughter was living with her father, and I called her and I said, hey, she's in high school now, right? And so high school kids try something new, don't even know what effects they are, and then bam, they're addicts, right? So I said, hey, you heard of this stuff called Flocka? You hear what I said? I called my high school kid. Hey, you heard of this thing called Flocka? She said, no, Ma, I ain't hear about it. All right, well, watch out for it. It looks like Pop Rocks. It does this, it does that. It is your generation's crack. Do not touch it, do not taste it, do not feel it, do not eat it, do not do anything. I prepared her. A month or two later, guess what? She calls us. She said, Mom, Flocka is here. I said, don't you touch it. She said, I'm not. You told me what it was, and I see it for myself. We have to have these discussions with our children about substance abuse. Because if we don't, that nasty world out there is going to teach our kids. And then we're going to have to get them off the street. Why? If we can prepare them now. Prepare them. That's our job. Don't join them. Prepare them. Percocets. Isn't that a pain pill? That is for somebody who is in immense pain. What are they taking Percocets for? What are they trying to block out? What are they trying to cover up? What are they trying to hide? What were they shaped in their homes? And all out getting, we got to get understanding. All right, Tiffany said, right? Tifa said, music is Satan's gifting. Why would we tangle with it? Yep. What are we feeding our minds, our children's minds? Garbage in, garbage out. That's right. He knows our words have power. That's right. And that is why we have to learn how to affirm each other. Parents, we need to stop talking down on our kids. We sometimes they really do get on our nerves. I ain't gonna lie. They do. But you gotta stop cursing at them. They're gonna think that that's what, let me tell you something. That B word, it ain't for me. Me and that B word is not friends. You wanna know why? Because I'm not that. I'm very respectful. So if somebody calls me that, I'm really offended. I don't play those games. Because I was called many a things that mess with me psychologically, that painted a picture in my own head about who I was when I knew who I was. Let's be mindful of what we do around our children. He gives us one job, and that is to make them functioning adults. Stop letting that world raise them. Even TV is bad. Even TV. And this is coming from a person that don't watch it. I don't watch not one lick of it. Unless you know how people drink socially? I watch TV socially. I only watch it when other people is around. Because I'm not going to allow it to enter here. Words are power. Words are power. Emotional. So that, it kind of deals with two different things, to be quite honest. It dealt with emotional and substance abuse. Because when you're cursing your child out when you're high and you're drunk, right? They're dealing with the substance abuse, right? And then they're dealing with the emotional and the verbal abuse. And then once you start verbally abusing your child, guess what? They verbally abuse other people. Boom, light bulb. Oh, they do. Everything is a learned behavior. Everything. One of the things we're going to recap. One of the things that we know that we are able to do if we put in the effort. If my father, who had a stroke, was able to reprogram his mind, guess what? We can do it too. It's doable. We just have to figure out how. And one of those ways is renewing our mind daily. Another one of those ways is developing a relationship with the Heavenly Father. Some people may not want to hear about that because they have church hurt. Don't deny God you because a church hurt you. The building hurt you. God didn't. Just because everybody says Lord, Lord doesn't mean that they're His. So ask God to sharpen your discernment and develop a relationship with Jesus yourself. Because the time is drawing nigh and we got to get our life together. And this is why we get into the root of a lot of this stuff. And if we want our kids to be better than we are, then we have to do the work so that they're willing to do the work as well. Okay, so look, let me see what this says. So Jen says, all these songs about sex and drugs so over the radio, all over social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, is crazy. And it's all kids are listening and seeing. And it's the parents' responsibility to keep that garbage away from their children. It is, but how can you do that in this day and age? Now, back when we was growing up, there was things that was put in place so that we couldn't see, like dirty magazines. Dirty magazines, kids used to sneak to go look at that. We knew that when we went into Blockbuster or any of the video stores that we went into for our Friday night video, that anything behind the curtain was for adults. There's no boundaries. The boundaries are blurred. That's why I never really said the word turn up, because I just think that's outside of my age bracket for me to say turn up. Turn up. My daughter says turn up. But then I'm not a hypocrite, because if I'm with my friends, I might say we are turned up, and then I'll be lying, right? So, anywho, our words shape them and their world. It does. It does. That's why I make it a point, because my mother, like I said before, my mother wasn't an overly affectionate mom. She is now. Like, she'll hug us, she'll tell us, well, not with COVID. She'd be like, but she's better. She's different now, but she wasn't. So her way of saying something as far as that she loves us was like, put on a coat. It's cold outside. That's what my sister would say. And I agree. But now she says, I love you. Now she says, be careful. Now she says, don't do that. Or now she says, because people have to grow. And just because your age says a number does not mean your maturity level matches that age. You can be very, very emotionally immature. Okay. So Tifa put up, do not be conformed to this world, this age, fashioned after and adapted to its external superficial customs, but be transformed, changed by the entire renewal of your mind, by its new ideal and its new attitude, so that you may prove for yourself what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God, even the thing which is good and acceptable and perfect in his sight for you. That is Romans 12:2 in the Amplified Version. Now, listen to this. This new attitude. Let me tell you how about this. Let me tell you just a quick story before we leave. Right? So, I was in kindergarten. I was bad. I was really, really bad. So I got bad. She said Patti LaBelle got a new attitude. So she says, I love you. And she does. And she really does. And for that, I am so, growth happens. Growth really, really happens. I'm sorry if it went out, you guys. I'm sorry it went out. But what I am going to say is that we're going to end this show right here. I hope that the information that came out tonight has assisted you guys in any way, shape, or form with realizing where we went wrong and where we need to correct it, okay? I also want y'all to know that next month is Black History Month, okay? So we're going to lighten the load. We're going to highlight our Black people and what we do best, okay? So this is our time to really, really share, and let people know about At the Root of It, because we're going to do great things for Black History Month. So I want you to stay tuned. Next week, we have a surprise guest, and the way that this has happened and the way that it came about was so awesome. So please look out for the commercial for who's going to be on the show, because God is taking the show to another dimension, y'all. But we are going to start it off with a special guest that is going to be on. So until next week, y'all, I love y'all to life. Please understand that Sway's our sneaker. I'm going to play the little 15-minute clip of the sneakers, but we are launching a new pair of sneakers by the first of the month, if not by the weekend. And I want you guys to take a look, because we're launching the female and the male. So this is the date night shoe collection, okay? So y'all let me know what y'all think. It's beautiful. I love them. I've got so many compliments on these new sneakers that's going to launch, and I am happy and excited. So tune in next week. We never went the political science way, but are we next week? Could we possibly have somebody that's running for office? Maybe. What office? We don't know. Tune in next week and you'll see what God is taking or doing for Black History Month. All right? I love y'all to life. See y'all next week. Same bat station, same bat time. Till we meet again. I love y'all so much. Please share, and share again, so that people can really hear this message, and hopefully they will get something out of it. Here's the Sways commercial. Have a great night, guys.
Introducing Sways by Shannon Willis. Style from casual to classy. You choose. You can sway either way.
Welcome, everyone. We want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to be with us. Come on, let's get to the root of it.
In these times that we live, we take strides to move forward. We strive to be more, stay strong and be focused. Start a while, we make choices, live or die. Take over starts at the root, and the truth may be hard to swallow. Step one, self-love above anything else in life.